Welcome to Two Dads Talking. You thought you were getting just Doug this week, but yeah, we made it work.
But I don't hate you guys enough yet to do that, so maybe someday.
Oh, I think it would be interesting. Although I got to say,
No, it's not, though. The one time I tried to do it, I went all like professory because I was talking about space and time, and I got all nerdy and stuff.
well, since we're doing nerdy space-time things again tonight, I'll have the chance to do the same. But I think it was fine. It was an odd, and you were fine. It was good.
Yeah, but that's the point. Those are the people that pay to hear us. So they did this to themselves.
This is why Doug doesn't do odds anymore. He feels like he doesn't want to abuse you guys if you're kind enough to give us money.
I mean, that would... Okay, fine. There are two reasons I don't do odds right now. No, the one, honestly, is I've just had the most magical run of like 2 or 3 months of just shit.
Yeah.
I've just been between the kids and the vacation and work and getting this. We finally just in the last day or whatever got this flip on the open market. We technically have to fix up 1 or 2 more things in there, like sneak in there and do it, but it's finally like out there so people can go look at it this weekend.
Nice.
So, and that's been, again, we haven't done anything this extensive before. This is probably boring for at least half of you, so I'll make it quick. When we got this thing, it was in what they call shell condition. And that usually means just your walls and your roof and your floor are there and all that stuff. This was technically worse than shell condition. There was the concrete walls and there was most of the floor was in there. And a lot of the trusses from the interior ceiling had been taken out because the previous owner was going to do a new structural support to try to make the ceilings vaulted. And so we essentially inherited something that wasn't actually up to code completely structurally. So we actually got something that was worse than shell condition. And we have brought it all the way up now to like, it's completely like, done. New kitchen, granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, 2 full baths. It went from a 2-bed, 1-bath to a 3-bed, 2-bath. We expanded the floor plan another 100 square feet with everything we did. It's just been a journey. And yeah, really glad to be over to get this one out of the way. Never going to do that again. Find something easier next time.
Yeah, at least you know.
Well, and it's just for people who have done it, they understand this already, but this is the first time we've done something this extensive. We were, like 2 days away from being done, like 2 weeks ago.
I was going to say that you were probably 2 days away from being done at least 4 or 5 times, right?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, to put it this way, we finally got to the point where it's like, okay, I just tomorrow and I've got 3 hours left. And that was 3 days ago. Like, it's just,
Yep.
it's always something. And then, we get the call like, yep, we're out. Everything's good. And then I walk in just to double check it. And I'm like, no, there's like 10 spots that need a touch of paint. And this, your bucket is still here, like around a corner, just forgot it kind of things.
No, it's better than not having a roof and missing parts of your floor, though.
It's true. It's true. It did come out looking great. Whoever gets it is going to get something that's, actually up to snuff because we had to do the full inspection gamut of everything to get everything approved. So,
well, congrats on that. And you have other good news. Are you willing to share the other good news yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
We'll see how that goes.
All right. Well, never mind. Well, good luck with the transition surgery. I hope it goes well, and I look forward to talking about it.
No, can't wait to get these babies popping.
I have a dad win that I wanted to share.
Ooh, good. We love this.
We haven't done a lot of these, and it's exciting. Charles, our patron, sent me a message today. Today, my kid put his Switch controller down and asked if I would take him outside to blow bubbles, play frisbee, and soccer. Taking that as a win.
All at the same time.
Yes, all at the same time, I hope, because that story is so much better if you're doing all of those things at once.
Which means his kid was practicing his frisbee soccer bubble skills on the Switch.
Yep, I guess so. I guess
good.
He was getting ready.
That is a good win.
Anytime your kid puts down a screen and wants to play with you and it's their choice, that is a 100% you're doing the right job as a dad. That's fantastic.
Yep, agreed.
Bridget has dramatically cut back on screen access for the kids this week, and she was talking to me about it today because I've been gone on travel for most of the week. I just got back at a little after midnight this morning. And Bridget was telling me, like, while you were gone, I basically took the screens away. And it's amazing how well the kids started playing with each other. Like, within half a day. It was just amazing. So I think in this household, we're going to be on a do less screens, take the screens away kind of initiative. It's probably going to suck for a couple of days, but it's something that we're going to have to do. It's nice to see the kids playing together. And I feel like Bridget just discovered an amazing win.
Well, good. Yeah, I'm not here to tell anybody how to parent, but we did that about a year and a half ago or so.
Yeah.
We just started, we kind of lessened it to where they had, we kind of like kept pseudo track, like they got 3 hours a week or 2 movies a week or whatever on their little iPads. And we started noticing that every time they got more than like 20 minutes stretch on it, they were just little assholes. Like telling them to turn it off. No, just after this. Oh, I want to watch one more. Or they'd turn them off and they immediately start like bickering with each other or something. Or one of them would turn it off first and then immediately be like, she's not turning hers off, and so finally one time we were just like, you know what? No, done. No more, no more for like the month. And we just went a whole month without giving it to them.
Yep.
And about a week into it, we were like, holy crap, they're like playing, they're finding stuff to do, they're going outside more, they're getting along better. And so we just kind
Okay.
of kept it rolling. And now we have them for like, a really long car ride, or we just know we're going to have to do like work on this flip, which is driving in and out. And, they're just not going to have our undivided attention for like 2 or 3 hours. And we do it that way. And that seems to work. So they understand it's something they're not normally supposed to get now, and I think it's better. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to if we can pull that one off to seeing how things change. I think it'll be.
It is tough on you at first too, because it was always a little bit easier to just be like, I have to do this. Here, go watch something for a half hour kind of thing. So we let them have some screen time now each week, but it's always on the TV. It's usually a movie, not a show with a bunch of, repetitive things in most cases. And it's always all of them together, not separate TVs, not separate anything. Like it's sort of like they have to decide what to watch together. And that also kind of seems to be less trouble most of the time. They actually get along great now. And then we tell them to turn the volume down and they tell us that they can't hear. So, yeah.
I'm looking forward to making that work. That's going to be good. But congrats to Charles. Thank you for sharing a dad win and something that
good job,
worked
Charles.
out well. That dude is still my hero. I picked him up a bottle on my trip. Actually, I found so Charles shares my appreciation for rye whiskey. He's got a much more developed sense of it.
As if Doug doesn't, but go ahead.
Well, you still drink that other nonsense.
You mean the nonsense that Ulysses S. Grant,
Yes.
fearless American leader and hero?
Yes, exactly.
That other stuff? Okay.
Exactly
Just making sure we're on the same page.
That pansy Ulysses S. Grant.
Not a war hero or anything.
I just don't like mash and I don't like bourbon and I just don't care for it. But the rye I like and Charles likes it too. And I found a little distillery that was literally across the parking lot from my hotel. There was a brewery and a distillery with the same owners, and they shared a parking lot with the hotel that I was at. So we just kind of stumbled across there after work was done and had a couple of drinks, and then we stumbled to the distillery. And a shout out, I have to look up the name of the distillery so I can share it, actually give them some credit. A shout out to the woman who did the tastings for me, because I walked in and said, yeah, I'd like to sample your rye. And she went, well, which rye? It's like, well, I saw that you had a couple of different ones. How many do you have? And she broke out like 6 bottles. Yeah, I wish. No, they all make their own, so it's not like that much variation. But she broke out a whole bunch of bottles and a whole bunch of little plastic shot glasses and said, let's have some fun. And everyone else is in the bar ordering a drink, and she's just pouring me taste after taste after taste of rye. I'd never had a white rye before. She's like, yeah, this is the white rye. Essentially, this is like your base for building your own crafted rye. So it's nothing fancy in itself, but you can age it yourself. You can flavor it yourself. You can put it in, if you're going to put it in a tiny oak barrel and give it your own texture. If you're interested in making your own rye, this is the shortcut. This is the start. You start with this and then you make it your own. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Can I try it? And I did try it, and it wasn't great on its own. Like it wasn't impressive, but it was a good base, and I can see how I could take that and put it in the right something and let it age for 4 or 5 years on my shelf, and it would be good. So it was interesting to have that. I didn't know that was a thing. And then she poured me, after that, they had a maple syrup rye. So they take their barrels, and when they're done with them, after the first run, they bring them to local maple syrup. I don't know what you even call them, but a local maple syrup retailer right there in Pennsylvania. And they fill these whiskey barrels with maple syrup.
Mm-hmm.
and then you let it sit in the barrel for 6 to 12 months, and then the syrup picks up this smoky whiskey flavor, and then they pour it out and they sell that syrup. Well, now you've got this syrup infused whiskey barrel, so they fill it back up with
Back.
rye,
Yep.
and now you've got a maple rye. And I was like, that sounds terrible. That sounds really sweet. She goes, no, I think
No,
you'll
that'd
like it.
probably be
Everyone
really
does.
good if it's allowed to sit long enough. That would be amazing.
It was really, really good.
It's like an Irish breakfast without having to mix anything.
I'm not sure what an Irish breakfast is. Enlighten me.
Jameson. It's oh God, what's the mixer? It's Jameson and something else. You take that shot and then you follow it with a glass of orange juice right away. And when it blends together in your mouth, it kind of tastes like sort of like a syrup and pancakes kind of thing.
I've never heard of this.
What?
Ever. Okay, I know
Yeah,
what I
it's
need to
called an
try.
Irish breakfast. Yeah, you gotta do them back to back real quick. But yeah, it actually tastes
Jameson
pretty good.
and then orange juice?
It's Jameson and something else. Let me just look it up because I don't know why I'm blanking on this because probably because it's been like a decade since I've had one.
Because it was the last time you were fun. So yeah, she
Oh
pours me
no, it
this.
was long before that.
So she pours me a taste of this maple rye, and it was really, really good. And then she pours me a thing of their 7 year. So I tried their 7 year, and that was quite tasty. And then she poured me the 2 year. I don't know why we went from a 7 year to a 2 year. That was the wrong direction. Didn't appreciate the 2 year very much. And she said, "Yeah, let's wash that taste out with a little more 7 year," and poured me another of the 7 year. So by the time I got to the bar to catch up with the guys, I had had like 4 or 5 shots of rye whiskey. And I bought a couple little bottles. I bought one for Charles, so I'm looking forward to handing that off to him. That'll be good. Did you find it?
Yeah, I found it. So it's butterscotch schnapps,
I guess
and
that's the sweetness for the syrup.
yeah,
Okay.
and Jameson. And in the bars, they'll put in a little bit of the schnapps, pour the Jameson kind of on top of it so it mixes together. And it's basically a shot-ish of that. And then a shot of orange juice. And you have the Jameson and schnapps first, and then you have the orange juice. Some recipes have other little things they do with it to add to it, but that's just the basic. And it sounds like it shouldn't be any
It
version
sounds
of
terrible.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you do them back to back and it's made right, it's
Okay.
pretty good.
I'm gonna try it now. Even
Surprising.
though it sounds terrible, I'm going to try it. Probably Saturday morning. Oh, I gotta buy. I don't have a bottle of
Ooh.
Jameson. I gotta get a bottle of Jameson. Okay. I guess I'll pick that up tomorrow. But yeah, no, it was a good trip. It was a very productive thing. I got to tour some really neat labs at an applied research laboratory that we work with. I got to see some really cool stuff. I got to walk through some new Army vehicles and have some flashbacks, which was fun. Saw some really cool Navy stuff and had good meetings. It was a good talk. It was a neat few days. But no trip to Pennsylvania would be complete without an utter shit show in Philadelphia.
Yay!
This is what we're learning. So, for the record, we weren't even supposed to fly into Philadelphia. We flew from Connecticut from New England to Dulles in DC, and then there to where we were staying in Pennsylvania for this thing. Our flight out of our host location into Dulles was delayed, but they didn't tell us it was delayed until like 10 or 20 minutes before boarding. We continually got text notifications. You'll be boarding in 35 minutes. You'll be boarding in 25 minutes. You'll be boarding in 20 minutes. And then within 30 seconds of you'll be boarding in 20 minutes, we got your flight has been delayed due to a previous flight being delayed. It's now leaving in 2 hours. And so we look at it, and the other flight isn't even in the air yet. So they knew, like hours before, that our flight was going to be delayed. And United did not send anyone a notification. So we get this delayed notification that, we're not going to leave there until like, I don't know, I think it was 4:30 or almost 5 o'clock. The flight was supposed to leave at about 2. Well, our connecting flight in Dulles was supposed to leave at 4:35. So now the new flight's not going to leave, in time to make that connecting flight. The other one's going to be gone by then. Everyone else in my group is like, well, we'll get to Dulles and then we'll figure it out. We'll find our way home from there. We'll figure it out. Me being me and having to manage every friggin' thing and having to control every friggin' thing, I went and called the company travel agent and said, hey, I don't think we're going to make our connecting flight. This is what happened. There are 5 of us on this trip. Is there any chance you can find us some seats and book us some seats some other way to get us home today? If not, I just want to get a hotel room again. I'm not trying to be doing anything crazy. She goes, yeah, let me see. Oh, I've got this connection. I can send you to Philadelphia instead. And then from Philadelphia, I can get you home. I'm like, okay, great. let's do that. Is there room? She goes, oh yeah, there's like 7 or 8 seats on that connection. It'll be good. We should just book it now. I'm like, great. Here's my information. Let's go. I walk over, talk to the team. Everybody's like, yes, thank you. That's a great idea. Let's do it. So I'm handing the phone around on speaker, and everyone's giving this travel agent their names, and she's booking our trips. And she says that the very last guy to get the phone, all of us are booked except him. And she hands him the phone, and he says, oh, okay, my name is. She goes, oh, hold on, not ready yet. Wow, other people are suddenly taking these seats. Well, it turns out everybody else from the flight had gotten up to the gate attendant and was trying to reroute themselves. And so these
And
seats
this
were
was the
disappearing.
reroute. Yeah.
So everyone's taking these seats. And fortunately, the gate attendant is doing this one at a time and very slowly, and people are grumpy and giving her attitude because the last guy in our group got the very last seat on the plane.
Ooh,
Yeah, like
close.
literally got the last one, and I was watching the next person in line to see if I could see their head explode when the woman told her they didn't have any seats left. It was
That's what I would have done. I would have been.
I'm kind of that jerk.
Only Tom could see my face right now, but it would have been like just waiting, hoping, desperately.
Pretty much
hoping.
what I did. Yeah, I was just watching. But we got our seats. No big,
Almost had to find the travel polka band from Milwaukee.
I almost made a Home Alone reference while we were there, and I didn't. I didn't want to age myself, although everyone there was my age, so it would have been fine. But so cool. So we got our flights. Now we're going to go to Philly and Philly home. Awesome. Couple hours to kill. Went somewhere, had an early dinner, had a couple beers, talked about the trip, had a good time. Went back to the airport. Back to the airport. The flight that's headed toward Philly was one of the most uncomfortable, like, what is happening to this airplane while we're taking off flights of my life. Like, probably the second or third most, oh my God, I'm going to die flight in my life. The thing is just like jumping and dropping in the air, and it was weird. So we're all looking around like, well, this is it, It's a little itty bitty plane. It's got 3 total seats across. Like,
Didn't
they
that
had to
Boeing
balance our
explode
weight.
like 2 days before this?
Yeah, probably. So I think it was a 170 or a 175 we were on. So it was a little itty bitty plane. But, we get there. It's like a 30-minute trip to Philadelphia, like super short. We get to Philadelphia, and our flight is like immediately delayed. Well, okay. Philadelphia Airport is a huge airport, and we were like at the opposite end. We went from gate F to gate B, and it was just a long, long hike. But we get there, it's been delayed. Okay, cool. Let's go sit and have a couple of beers. And it's been delayed again. And it's been delayed again. And it's been delayed again. And now that it's on time, now no problem. The plane is actually landed and you guys are good to go. Oh, wait, our pilot is now over his hours for the day and can't fly anymore. So now we need to find a new pilot. We wound up sitting there. We were supposed to be home, I think by my math, including my drive home from the airport, I was going to be home by like 9 p.m. at the latest. We didn't take off from Philadelphia until 11:20 something. Like it was 11 p.m. It was super late. I didn't get home until almost 2 o'clock this morning. Like the plane landed a little after midnight and I drove home like 2 a.m. Really, really gassed. Long trip. But while we're in the Philadelphia airport, okay, the thing's just been delayed. It's like 9 o'clock. It's just before 9 o'clock, and our flight just got delayed again. And they gave us the notice. Yeah, we don't have a captain. Looks like we're probably not leaving for at least an hour and a half, blah, blah, blah. An entire plane full of people. And this is a big plane. This is a 6-seater. This is a big one. Everybody kind of walks across the way to the little cafe bar that's across the way there. They had power terminals set up everywhere. I loved it at first. Philadelphia Airport has power terminals to plug in at every chair. It's amazing. So everyone's plugging in, charging their phones, and we're having a beer and we're talking. And everybody's grumpy. And a guy walks out and says, hey, just so you know, it's last call. I want to make sure everyone knows it's last call. Pretty typical, but it's at 9 o'clock. And that seems kind of early. I'm like, that's weird. You're going to lose out on a lot of business. He says,
we have to sit here for 2 more hours without alcohol.
Right. I mean, it's a great selling point, right? Like,
Right.
You really want to buy a beer at that point. So he tells us it's last call, and then he goes, oh, and they're cutting the water off in about a half hour. So we're not going to have water in the terminal in a half hour. Like, why didn't you lead with that, But it turns out they were closing it down because they were turning the water off to fix something. So the Philadelphia airport was like, screw this whole concourse of people. We're going to turn off the water in this whole concourse. And that's pretty bad. They also killed like most of the electricity. We're sitting there at these stations trying to plug our phones in for this trip, and all of a sudden they just don't work anymore. There was
just like 28 days later, you're all huddled in an airport terminal.
Yeah, those of us that didn't get eaten,
no running water.
Right. So we're all sitting around grumpy and whiny and a little bit.
Someone turns on their cell phone screen, you go.
we found like one island that had chargers that worked, and we're all huddled around this one island, and it was funny. I had this woman plug her phone in next to me, and she probably weighed 2.5 of me, sweetheart of a woman, but like 2.5 of me, Southern draw. She goes, "Don't you go looking through my phone." Like, ma'am, I have no interest. Don't you go looking for my dirty pictures. Like, no, ma'am, no interest. I'm good. I'm gonna leave this here, but I don't trust everybody. But I can see you from where I'm sitting, so don't you go through my phone. There ain't no dirties on there for you to see. What kind of person do I look like? I'm in a button-down shirt, like I'm dressed pretty nice. I'm dressed business casual.
She was hitting on you.
Maybe she was trying to get me to look for her dirties, I guess.
No,
But
she was trying to start a conversation.
oh well, yeah,
If
maybe.
you're one of the guys who's just like, well, I'm not opposed to seeing some of those, but I'll definitely respect you. And that starts the conversation.
Yeah,
For
I'm
her,
glad.
for
I'm glad
her
that didn't
type.
go that way. But yeah, the Philadelphia airport is just absolutely savage. Like, yeah, sorry your plane was delayed. We apologize. We can't find you a captain. And oh, by the way, no water and no electricity for you fuckers. Have fun. No beer, no water, no electricity. Don't flush the toilets. Have a nice day.
You know how
Philadelphia
great it
airport is
would
savage.
be if, just like the movie Airplane, if they talked to you like that? Like, no electricity for you fuckers. Just, just you wait. Don't start with your white zone shit again.
But that was the trip. Trip was good. Just the way back, the day back, like Wednesday was like a 17-hour day, technically. It was a long day. And the drive home was long, but it was good. And I'm home and I'm mostly rested and I'm not working tomorrow. I'm taking the kids to see dinosaurs tomorrow. So yeah, I'm relaxing and I'm feeling pretty good.
Well, good. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we ready to talk some craziness?
Yeah, let's do it. Because this was a mild Philadelphia story.
Yeah, it was very mild. Yeah, it's nothing like the train station. That one was something special. I'll probably never have a trip that exciting ever. I hope I never have a trip that
That's
exciting.
still maybe my all-time favorite episode of ours. Just listening to that again and realizing exactly the streak that you had in that bathroom of just experience.
It was amazing. That was a very
It was
colorful
great.
experience, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will never, I'll just never forget singing Waterfalls with like a random group of guys all pooping on the toilet, like pooping in stalls at the same time. It felt
Well,
like I was back in Iraq. That was the most Iraq experience I've had
when
since Iraq.
when when you were first telling the story, like live, we're sitting here recording, and you talked about the guy dropping the half of the sandwich or
Sandwich.
whatever.
Yeah.
Or no. Sorry, it was the guy with the hook. No hook,
Oh.
and he was all like, "Oh," and I just remember thinking, "What do you expect, dude? It's like a Philadelphia train station. Like you can't expect hardly anything of value or whatever in here."
Right.
And then I was listening to it, and I was driving wherever, and we got to that part, and I was like, "Oh, poor guy." I just really hit hard.
I felt bad for him
I
because who
felt
wants to
for
put their
him.
bags down on a train station
Felt for
bathroom
him.
floor?
Well, and
Like,
then you're doing some shit where you're like hooking it around your neck and trying to change the
yeah.
bag on your neck or whatever.
Meanwhile, you've got a guy like outside your stall working a drug deal for a club, and everyone else is singing songs that are 30 years old. And that poor guy probably had a meltdown in that stall, and I didn't
Just
even know about it.
sorry.
If you haven't listened to that episode, it's a good one. Dad advice and stories from crappy stories from
Happy
Philadelphia, I think
stories
is what we
from
call
Philly.
it.
Yeah, you're right.
It's
Let
one of
me
my favorite episodes.
find the episode number because now we have them up. I
Oh,
finally decided to sit down and do that.
good job updating all those. I meant to do that and never got to
Yeah.
it.
I know. Thank me later because it only took a year and a half to do it. No, it's not loading, of course. Is it really that long ago? This wasn't before Terrence Howard, was it?
No, this was like February of this year, I think.
Oh yeah, episode 53.
Because I'm trying to remember when I went on that trip and
Yeah,
for
it's
business
episode
purposes.
53, published on March 5th.
Yep.
Yeah.
So February was the trip. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Good episode. Enjoyed that one. In fact, I might just listen to that again now that we've talked about it because now I want to hear it again. Yeah. Philadelphia always, I love that city. Even if I don't love all the people in that city, it feels like a better New York to me. I like Philadelphia.
It's not saying much.
Well, I know, but
I should be nicer. I have lots of relatives that live in New York,
it's
New York proper.
yeah. All right. We're going to talk a little bit of, as Doug said a minute ago, would you say crazy space stuff? Is that what you said?
And it's not even the picture of the Tate brother and Bonnie Blue.
No. Oh, should we give the Bonnie Blue update? Oh, we did that on the updates episode. Never mind. I did not search her for any news updates before the episode tonight. John, a
No.
listener of ours, I apologize. I know that's
Uh,
why you tune in. I know that that's the whole reason you listen to the show. I apologize. You can go ahead and turn this episode off now. There's not a Bonnie Blue update. I apologize. Let's talk about Mars. Oh, I never published the Lunacy 2. Okay, let's talk about how Tom is behind on his odd and has to publish Lunacy 2, the conspiracy theory one, which is fun, and also talk about Mars. So if you've listened to the Lunacy odds on or odd on Patreon, you know the moon is a strange thing. It's just wacky, it's just weird. Mars is also very weird. But Mars is weird in a lot of different ways. And we talked about it a little bit on the last episode. I kind of flirted with the idea. And Doug talked about a whole bunch of stuff that he wished he had listened to the Lunacy episode first. He texted me later. He's like, I should have listened to that before I started talking. I'd have felt better about that.
well, I didn't do any research on it, and I was just kind of shooting from the hip. And then you were like, "Oh no, they've actually we have this Artemis program and all this stuff." And I was like, "Really?" And then I was 30 seconds away on the recording from hitting that part when
You
I
were
had
right
last
there.
paused it. I was like, right there.
Did Artemis interest you? I mean, is that as compelling to you as it is me, or am I just weird for being so
I haven't
fascinated?
really looked into it yet. You like just mentioned it briefly. You kind of cast through it
Oh, okay.
on the recording, but I understand it's some sort of like more in depth, like what moon study thing or something like that was what I kind of saw briefly. Let me
So
see.
the real short version of it is we're sending people back to the moon to stay on one of the poles for about between 1 and 3 weeks. They're going to stay there,
Hmm.
gather things for research, plot areas for a moon base, a literal research station on the moon. They're going to come back. We're currently building an orbital structure like the ISS to orbit the moon. And it's going to be like a launching point. So we can send something to that. And then from there, we can send people to and from the research station on the moon. Also, we can use it as an important launching point to get from here to Mars.
I
So as a whole
see.
part of the
Artemis
Mars
4
journey.
is supposed to be a new mobile launcher, and I see. Artemis 3 is the South Pole. Okay,
Yep.
gotcha.
So we're going to build a lunar lab that orbits the moon and also serves as sort of a jump point between us and Mars and us and the research station on the moon. And it's
Okay.
going to allow us to explore further into the galaxy than before. It's going to allow us to much more easily get people on and off the moon, to resupply people on the moon, to evacuate them if necessary. It's a really exciting, really cool program that is super far along in development. I think 2027 is the next significant stage. But yeah, it's happening soon, and I'll talk more about it on an odd. But the Artemis program is fascinating.
You know what? I think there's also a nice little avenue for the conspiracy theorists with this.
Mhm.
So, back in the olden days when people wanted to run like a railroad across the country or an oil pipeline somewhere, and there was that pesky little village of backwater people in the way,
You're
and
talking about the theme or the plot for Blazing Saddles. Yes, it's
yeah,
real life that really happened. That's how this stuff was
yeah,
done.
or the plot for Shooter with Mark Wahlberg, actually, like the
Oh yeah,
baseline for that too. And
yeah,
they just like steamroll everybody and try to kill them off, just to get them out of the way. So obviously, the creatures that Neil Armstrong saw on the horizon on the moon, we've actually secretly gone back there lots of times. We've officially eliminated all of them. Now we can act like we're going back to set up our way station because they're not going to compromise it.
yep.
We've
And
eliminated all the competition.
I actually talk a good bit about that in Lunacy 2, The Dark Side of the Moon. So yes, that's a fantastic point, and I'm glad Doug made it
But
all on his own.
they still
It
haven't
gives some
found
validity.
Megatron hidden in there yet, though. That's going to be a problem later.
I don't think he's there. I think he was what destroyed Mars, and he went somewhere else. I think he left this place
No,
on
in the
vacation.
movie, he was
I know,
MBE-1. Oh, wait,
I
no.
know.
Was he MBE-1 in the ice caps? He was MBE-1 in Antarctica. He was in Antarctica. He was
I
in the ice
think
in Antarctica.
yes, I think that's
That
right.
other, like, more ancient, like, prime one was in the moon core
Yep.
that got reactivated by Megatron. These are very serious, important details that we have to get right.
I'm glad that you've got them right because I haven't seen those movies in a long time, and I'm
Don't know
glad
if
that Doug's got
I
confidence here.
don't know if I got them right. All we know is Mark Wahlberg, there he is again, stopped an entire strike from a gigantic Autobot with a sword in his own hands.
Yes, pretty
Because that
impressive.
makes sense from physics, of course.
I'm starting to wonder with all these very true, possibly true to life conspiracy theory movies Mark Wahlberg is in, if maybe he's actually trying to tell us something.
No,
I need to
he's
do
the
like a
fall guy.
comprehensive review now of all of his
The
movies.
real informant is Michael Bay.
Oh, please, God, I hope not, because that man destroyed cinema. I hope not.
You're not destroying it when it's the truth, Tom.
Well, he destroyed cinema by making it so much more about graphic effects than the movie that, like, no, he screwed up bad. One of the Transformers movies, I remember I couldn't even see what was happening in the fight scenes. It was so blurred together and so hard to watch. I had no idea what was happening, who was winning, what was going on. And I remember I was in a theater when I saw it and people were cheering. And I'm like, you don't even know what you're cheering for. You're cheering for blurred vision at this point. This is ridiculous. Story didn't matter. Just put big, bright, flashy things on a screen, and that's all that matters. And yeah,
We might need to get you to an eye doctor. So it sounds like you were the only one who didn't know what was going on.
maybe that's the case. That might be. All right, back to Mars.
All right, back to Mars.
So Mars is very interesting in the sense that it's a planet. It's in our solar system. We love it. Named after a god of war, which is pretty cool. But it doesn't act like a planet in a lot of ways, and it is different structurally than planets in a lot of ways. And then there are some theories about this. So to start with, I guess, how do I start with this? So I'm just going to start with the theory. The theory is that Mars is not actually a planet, but it is the moon of an extinct planet. It was something that existed and was orbiting a real planet, a protoplanet, early on when the universe, when our solar system was being formed. And something cataclysmic happened to that planet. It was destroyed. It sent most of its mass scattered in different directions. A lot of it left the solar system. Some of it was consumed by the sun. Some of it is still in our solar system. And this moon of its was just large enough and dense enough that it got caught up in the sun's gravity and remained. And that is now Mars. There's science that lends itself to saying this makes sense. There's nothing that has proven this. It's still sort of a fringe science theory, but it answers a lot of questions that we have that people have been unable to answer for a very long time about why Mars behaves the way that it does. So we will start by talking about the characteristics that make Mars weird. I did have some notes on here. I wish I had taken more. I didn't realize we were going to talk about this, but I did have some notes from when I was researching this for something else. Mars's physical properties really resemble those of large moons more than they do terrestrial planets. The diameter of just under 7,000 kilometers, it's much smaller than it should be given its place in the solar system. Much smaller. It's more comparable to Jupiter's moon, Ganymede, or Saturn's moon, Titan, and it has a similarly low density. Kind of like our moon, the density is way too low for what it should be, largely because our moon is dry and doesn't have water and moisture in it at the rate that a planet would. The low density and the lack of a magnetic field on a global level from Mars suggests that it didn't actually go through the same differentiation as Earth and Venus did, which it should have, since it was supposed to be formed at roughly the same time as Earth and Venus. It has a different core. They discovered recently that it has a molten core with a radius just under 1,800 kilometers. That was
Can I be a poo
NASA's.
poo head?
Yes.
How do we discover that it has a molten core from like
NASA's
one of the little robots running around
the
getting the
InSight
rocks?
mission from NASA. Yeah, if you
Okay.
Google InSight, InSight,
Oh, is that how you spell it? I've been
well,
spelling it
it
wrong
could have
all
been
this
the letter
time.
N and sight. It could have been, they like acronyms that are spelt all crazy. So, yes, Douglas, it's
Like
actually
no.
spelt like it says. But if you were to look at that, they were able to sample and get ideas of Mars' sort of planetary composition.
Okay,
And
just curious.
yeah,
Basically, the rock said it had to be that.
well, the rock and there's imaging and density and whatever NASA does that makes them smart.
Yes.
One of
Okay.
the takeaways from the InSight mission was that Mars appears to have a molten core radius that's right around 1,800 kilometers, maybe a little bit less. That doesn't make sense for a planet that was formed the way that ours was formed or the way that Saturn's was formed.
Oh,
If
it's
it's a
an
terrestrial,
iron core.
molten iron, yep.
Yeah. Right. That didn't register for me. Got it. Sorry, carry on.
Thank you. The terrestrial planets vary. They go through something that's called differentiation. They go through rapid heating and cooling and expansion and contraction as they're formed, and their cores typically are a little different the way that they're formed. Mars, based on this, isn't a terrestrial planet. It shouldn't be. I'm not going to say it isn't, but it doesn't match the characteristics of terrestrial planets. However, there are moons and other satellite objects in the galaxy or in the solar system for whom this would resonate and this makes sense. This is a fairly common trait in a lot of moons, is what I'm going to call them, but really just satellite objects that aren't planetary. So that resonates and makes us think, okay, maybe this is a moon. There's a chance. Still not compelling, still not scientific evidence, but it's enough that it's interesting. So far we've got its size is smaller than it's supposed to be. Was it Kepler? So Kepler was a scientist who followed up after Newton with a lot of mathematical equations. He did equations that predicted how big planets should be at certain distances from the sun, what their orbit should be, how often they should appear in places based on their orbit and their mass. He also found a periodicity that basically says, based on this formula, planets should exist in the following places. And he could predict there should be a planet at this distance from the sun, orbiting this way. There should be one this way, orbiting this route. And he was able to predict all these planets. He wasn't able to predict Mars. Mars is not what he predicted. There should be a much bigger planet in a slightly different location, and it's missing. It's just, according to his theory, it's just missing. The planets after that point exist according to his periodicity correctly. The ones before it exist correctly. So there's just this one kind of error in the math where there should be a big planet, and there's not. Instead, somewhere sort of at the edge of that range, we have Mars, which is not the right size by far and doesn't quite behave the way that it should based on his math for its orbit and for its elliptical pattern and for its size. None of that really fits Kepler's law. And it's the only planet that we have right now that doesn't fit that. When he first proposed this, there were some planets that he said there should be a planet here, here, here that we didn't know of yet. And as we went on, they were discovered basically exactly where he said they should be. So Kepler's laws, there's a lot of validity to them, and that leads to a big question as to why isn't there a bigger planet here where there should be? Doug's looking at something. I think he might have a point.
No, I was just sitting here thinking if it's not exactly where it should be, it's not following the math. Theoretically, Mars should be a problem at some point.
Yep.
In the next hundreds of millions of years or whatever.
Yep.
But most of the stuff I'm finding is about Mars's moon, Phobos, is predicted to make a crash somewhere in the next 50 million years.
Yeah.
Which, again, sounds like a long time, but that's really not that long cosmically.
No.
So it's
less than a T-Rex away.
Well, yeah, right. It's 3 stegosauruses away.
Oh, Stegosaurus were a long time ago. No, that was a long time ago. Yeah, but the Cretaceous period was very long, and the Stegosaurus was at the beginning, and he was a fossil by the time the Tyrannosaurus was around. So probably not 3 Stegosauruses.
I still love that. We mentioned that fact on an earlier episode that a T-Rex is closer to a cell phone than a Stegosaurus, like chronologically.
And it's crazy. I mentioned that to my wife tonight, and she was like, "Really?" I was like, "Oh yeah, that's wild."
All those depictions of a T-Rex attacking a Stegosaurus are it's just propaganda, man. It's not true.
Work. Yeah, they're just trying to pull one over. So since you talked about Phobos, let's talk about Phobos before we get into like some of the other.
Before we get too far, I want to give a little fess up to Tom too, because when we first briefly mentioned this last time, I kind of did the whole like, really, a bigger planet exploded. Well, then how come like nothing else got hurt, man? kind of thing.
And it turns out a lot of things did.
Well, a lot of things did, but then I'm sitting there thinking, like, because I like to talk about this all the time. We're talking about outer space here. So if you take something, let's say Earth's, well, probably theoretically, whatever, if there was a bigger planet here that's no longer here, it would probably be a little bit bigger than Earth at least some percentage larger, like 5 or 10% larger. If it exploded sort of uniformly outward, anything that was kind of exploding 90-ish degrees from the sun at that point in time could end up being the asteroid belt, or a lot of it, because it's kind of exploding into an orbital path. And then, because you're talking about whatever, 100 million miles between it and the next planet, it's going to spread out. Pieces and chunks are going to spread out. And especially if things are orbiting on other sides of the sun or different spots, it's perfectly reasonable to think that a lot of things would actually not get hit by at least anything serious. Smaller pieces would come close, burn up as they enter those atmospheres. A lot of pieces would fall into the sun after they just miss 1 or 2 other planets.
Yep.
So it is actually reasonable that there would not be you wouldn't see an entirely annihilated, solar system just from something like this happening, because we have all of our models showing them all together, but when you do the quote real life
Yeah.
scale,
There's a
I
lot of
mean,
space in between.
he's a nutcase now, but the old Bill Nye episode where he like rides a bike and runs and's like, here's the sun, here's Mercury, here's Venus, and he's like running down the road.
Yep.
Think of something that size exploding there. Like, there's a very good chance it wouldn't fucking hit anything,
Yeah.
potentially. So,
Yep.
that's it.
So Doug mentioned Phobos. There are two moons to Mars that we're going to talk about. Phobos and I think it's Deimos. Deimos? Deimos.
John Stamos.
Stamos. I'm gonna call it Stamos from this point forward. We're gonna talk about Phobos and Stamos.
Yes, Deimos.
Deimos?
Or, yeah, Deimos.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna call it Stamos if I can remember to do that because I like that better.
Stamos.
So Mars has two very small moons, Phobos and Stamos, and they are so small and they have such irregular shapes and they've got a strange chondrite composition. They've got a lot of weird stuff about them. It made people wonder, why are these moons so different? And the more that we looked at them, they've got a very near circular orbit, which is not normal for a captured object for a planet. Normally it's more elliptical. We think that they've got sort of this strange complex origin. There was a hypothesis that said that they formed from debris from a massive impact on Mars, which is kind of one of the theories of our moon, is that, that somewhere in the Pacific Ocean there was a huge impact and chunks of our planet got thrown out and became the moon. They coalesced and gathered. That's not a super popular one these days, but it's a theory. It's a common moon forming theory. However, they don't match a lot of what we should be seeing if that was a part of what happened. And finally, people started looking at them a little bit more closely. And now it is not universally agreed, but largely agreed that it is probable that Phobos and Stamos are actually asteroids that got sucked up into Mars's orbit and not true moons. And if that's the case, they wonder where they would come from. And the big notion right now is that, well, if the planet was destroyed and this was a moon of the planet, it makes sense that some of the rubble from that planet, some of the debris would get captured in this thing's orbit if it's small enough. And so they think maybe that Phobos and Stamos are actually asteroids from the original planet that was destroyed and got caught up in Mars's orbit after it stabilized.
Which means we need to get one of the Mars rovers there and look at those rocks.
Yes, and check the
Be like,
composition similarities.
These used to be part of a molten magma core planet.
So that's Phobos, which Doug mentioned so nicely. It was a nice little segue. Mars also has orbital anomalies and geological anomalies that are strange. And we mentioned a little bit about the bulges, the tidal bulges on Mars in the last episode. When I say tidal, we think water, we think ocean, and we see them on the Earth. There are points sort of at the center of the center of the Earth's line where it relates to the moon, where the moon pulls on the water, and we get like a bulge instead of having a perfectly round spherical planet. That's not what we have, and you see this pull, this gravitational effect of the moon on our water, so we call it a tidal bulge. Mars has two spots that are almost perfectly 180 degrees aligned that look a lot like tidal bulges, but they're not water. It's the actual planet. It's the actual Earth. And we don't have land that gets pulled by the moon in that fashion. We don't have that. It affects our water, not our land, because our mass, our geography has a greater mass and a greater gravitational pull than that of the moon. But it turns out the moon has gravitational bulges because of us. And so these two bulges, it's the Tharsis bulge and I forget what the other one is.
Catharsis.
That would be perfect. Tharsis was just easier to remember. But they basically show that something bigger pulled on this planet over a long period of time and kind of shaped its formation, which again makes us think that it was originally a moon to a larger planet. It also has a lot of, I guess you can call it scarring. A lot of people call it scarring. It's got geographical features on there that look like something went wrong on that planet, that look like something big hit it and there was catastrophic damage, but most of it is only on one pole of the planet. You do have the Valles Marineris, which is a giant canyon system that makes the Grand Canyon look like a butt crack. It's massive. It's like 4,000.
Well, it depends on whose butt crack, actually.
I suppose that's fair.
This might be the first time we make a Lizzo reference.
Go ahead. If you want to get it out of your system, make all the references you
No,
want.
I just did it. It's good. We're done
Well,
now.
all right. So things like this Valles Marineris, it's basically a giant canyon like the Grand Canyon, but much larger. But it does not appear as though it was caused by sedimentary flow. It doesn't look like it was caused by erosion by water, like the Grand Canyon was. This looks like something very violent and very sudden happened, an impact or something else that just ripped the land apart and it never healed.
Like a
But that
gigantic rock cleaver flying by.
it would have to be a pretty big butcher knife asteroid, right? Like that would have to be precision timing. Some
Awesome.
Zeus was just axe throwing drunk at a bar and missed and hit the
If
planet,
they
you
ever
know?
find it, they need to call it the Rag Reynolds asteroid. Fine, fine timing.
So that's weird. You've got one of the crusts of the moon, I believe it's the north crust, is like the mantle is like, or the crust is like 20 kilometers thicker than it
Of
is at the
Mars, not
south
the moon, he
of
means.
Mars, yes.
Yes.
Which is very odd. It should be slightly less difference there. They should be closer to the same, which is interesting. And then the opposite side, where it's thinner, just looks like it looks like a war land, like just a wasteland. There's impact craters everywhere. There's evidence, more scarring, evidence of something really awful happening there. I mean, it looks like it was pelted by the asteroid belt itself on one side of Mars. And the differences you get in that half of the planet and the other are pretty significant geologically. There was a theory that came out in 2024, last year, maybe the year before, that a moon that they called Nerio could have caused the distorted shape on Mars. Maybe it was big enough to do it, but most people kind of shot that down, and they're looking back to say it was probably a larger body, something planetary that affected it, which would only make sense if Mars is not a planet. There's some talk that maybe Jupiter's pull on it affected it somehow, but even if that's the case, the effects that we should see mathematically there are not what we're seeing. So people are really struggling to explain Mars in a lot of ways. What we know about sort of the early solar system is that it was a really crazy, just hectic, chaotic, violent environment with things colliding, things getting sucked into other orbits, things collecting themselves around larger bodies and getting smashed into them, kind of coalescing and creating planets and creating satellite structures. It was a really, really crazy world when our solar system was formed. Like we know this. There are models like the NICE model and the Grand Tack hypothesis that talk about this a little bit. The Grand Tack hypothesis kind of talks about the early formation and evolution of the solar system. It talks about the bigger planets. It talks about Jupiter and Saturn mostly. And it talks about where they started in the solar system, how they changed direction, how they wound up where they are now. It's really interesting and it's worth a Google. And then what they call the NICE model, or it's probably Nietzsche model. It's probably some Italian philosopher, and I'm just screwing it up and whatever. But that one also talks about the outer planets and their evolution early on in the solar system. It talks about Jupiter and Saturn and Uranus and how initially when they were created, it was much, much closer to the sun. And then some point there was some wild instability that caused them to sort of shift dramatically and end up where they are now. It scattered all these little small objects and scattered all the stuff really all across the solar system and kind of shaped its architecture and its structure. So that moment, we don't know what that was, that moment of instability. The NICE model says that, maybe there was an impact that threw things out of order. Maybe it was a gravitational field on one of the larger bodies. Something got screwed up and it really threw things out of whack. No one knows what it is, but it talks about why Uranus and Neptune actually swapped places once. Because if you don't know that, they actually swapped, which is kind of wild to think all of on its own. And
Yeah, it's
then
like every whatever. I think it's actually on their orbits. There's a brief 12-year period or something where they switch places, and it's supposed to happen once every 200 or 500 or 100,000 years or something.
I'm not sure about the periodicity of it, but yeah, I should probably
I
look.
thought we just got out of that. Or maybe it was like the Pluto Neptune thing where like Pluto was closer than Neptune for like 12 years.
No, I don't know. I should follow up with an astrologer because that would be fun. I really don't know. But I do know that, you know, there's a lot of weird stuff going on in the solar system that they don't have answers for.
I was wrong.
And
It's Pluto and Neptune, by the way. Pluto is closer to the sun than Neptune for about 20 years out of its 248-year orbit.
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, according to the NICE model, or the grand tack hypothesis. Essentially, we think we have some theories as to how our system sort of evolved and started and created and why things are where they are. But there are a lot of things that it can't answer and that modern science doesn't have an answer for that appears to be from some strange, significant anomaly in our solar system, but we have no idea what that anomaly would be. The asteroid belt is one of them. They can't explain why the asteroid belt is where it is. There's not a lot of reason that really states why those objects should be that close together in that particular orbit where they are. There aren't a lot of theories that have really explained that. There are a lot of problems with the math with the asteroid belt. And people don't understand how it basically wasn't consumed by other planets earlier on during the formation, or how it didn't escape the gravity altogether and either get thrown into the sun or thrown out of our solar system. There's a lot of weirdness about the asteroid belt, but nothing that, proves or verifies what we're talking about. But some of the weird stuff in our solar system. And I did write these ones down. I have these on a Word doc, so this is good. We talked a little bit about Venus having a retrograde rotation last time. That one is weird. What that means basically is that Venus spins backwards. It does not spin the same direction as the other planets relative to the sun. It actually spins in the opposite direction, and it's very, very, very slow. One day on Venus is actually longer than a year. It actually orbits the sun faster than it rotates on its own axis, which is bizarre. We spin around 365 times before we go around the sun once, and Venus goes around the sun before you can see tomorrow. So that's weird. Uranus is actually tilted on its side. So appearing to us, the way it looks to us, compared to every other planet in the solar system, Venus actually looks like it's a ball rolling around the sun rather than something that spins like a top. And we don't know why it's doing that. The suggestion is that there was a massive collision at some point that just hit it so hard it rotated at 180 degrees. That's the best theory that we've got for that. It's just a really weird astronomical oddity, and we don't have an answer for it. Let's see. Jupiter, the red spot on Jupiter is a storm that's been going for at least 300 years. It's actually shrinking right now at a really scary rate, and no one knows why, and we're kind of concerned as to what that means.
So it's less than 3 Earths long now?
It's less than 3 Earths long, yes. It is a huge, huge storm. It's the eye of Jupiter, right? And it's what it's known for. But it's got a storm that's been going for at least 300 years that we know of. Neptune has winds that reach speeds of over 1,000 miles per hour. 1,200 miles per hour is one of the more recent ones that I saw. And then Mercury is actually, the core is slowly cooling and shrinking, which is causing the planet's surface to contract. Mercury is actually getting smaller and wrinkly, kind of like a grape. It's actually
drying out
right
from the sun.
From the sun, yes. Oh, it's for some reason the core is
Sean Connery.
Down. Yes. So as the core is slowing down and not spinning less, it looks like it cools more. And as it cools, it shrinks. And that's causing the whole planet to sort of contract along with it. So Mercury itself right now is actually doing weird things and shrinking. And who knows what that actually means or why. Maybe there's just sort of a longevity to planets in their core. I mean, I think there has to be. You can't just spin forever. Energy is not perpetual. So maybe Mercury is just, relatively close to its sort of end cycle, and it's
burning out. The sun is going to burn out in however many billions of years, supposedly. So planets are going to go faster.
Yeah.
Or it's slowly going towards the sun, slowly being impacted by the sun. And it's drying out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't really know, but there are all these really odd things in the solar system. And when we look at, specifically Venus spinning the wrong direction, Uranus with a sideways tilt, kind of doing its own thing and rolling like a ball. When we look at those oddities, science is looking for a way to explain them and doesn't really have one yet. But if there were a planet approximately where we think Mars should be mathematically, and that planet were to explode and were to send that mass flying violently out across the solar system, it would potentially explain these oddities that we have no other possible explanation for right now. So there's a very common theory, very common. Now I'm editorializing a little bit. There is a theory that is gaining more and more ground and becoming more popular. A lot of it is based on, like I said, Kepler's laws and Newton's work. A lot of it is just based on the fact that we can't prove some things and we want to find an answer that fits and solves this sort of riddle.
Yeah, like string theory.
Like string theory.
That would
Although
be nice.
there was some real interesting stuff that went down this week with quantum theory. So string theory is going to get an interesting an interesting update soon, I think.
I just
Um,
find it odd that string theory's been like almost assumed that it has to be true because of the math for 20 years, and we haven't actually had anything to prove it. I don't think it's that. I think it's something else,
yeah, and I don't
even
know.
if I don't like it.
I think ultimately it's all governed by something that we can't comprehend. And if that's the case, I'm grateful for it because I don't want human beings tampering with the nature of the universe and being able to manipulate it. I don't think any good would come of that. So I kind of want to believe that the origin of the universe and the structure and the makeup of it is just beyond our comprehension. It's just so far beyond what our minds can fathom that we're not going to be able to. And I'm kind of clinging to that hope so that we don't screw up the entire fucking universe.
Oh no, it's too big for us to screw up. We'll just screw up our own little part of it.
I don't know if it's all connected and we're looking at string theory and quantum theory and saying that things exist across all universes at the same time, then if you screw something up here, it screws it up everywhere. And we would likely screw something up everywhere, is
Yeah,
my thought.
but then it's already all screwed up.
Yeah, I guess so. That explains
Boom.
Yankee fans, I guess. Yeah. All right.
Nothing can explain that. They'll still be working on that one.
Uh but anyway, so that's the basic theory on Mars being a satellite structure or a moon instead of being a planet. The size isn't right. The density isn't right. Its orbit isn't right. The moons aren't really moons. They're asteroids. And looking for an explanation for that is kind of tricky because asteroids don't typically orbit planets in the way it does. Usually they get pulled into the planet for an impact. The asteroid belt, they did a basic mathematical assumption on how much mass is in the asteroid belt. And then they did the math on if a planet were to explode and explode outward into the solar system, where would that material, where would that mass go? And they decided that roughly 94 to 96% of the material would escape or be consumed by the sun or impact with other planets. So 96% of it, 94% of it, somewhere in that range would be gone and we wouldn't be able to see it today. That would leave somewhere of about 4 to 6% of that planet's mass that would find its way into an orbit around the sun and get caught up in gravity and actually maintain a path, kind of like a planet. And it turns out the asteroid belt's total mass is right about 5% of what they expect a planet in that location should be. So that was an interesting mathematical finding.
How do
Doug's
they
got his funny
figure
face
that?
on.
How do they figure that out? They don't even have a rover on the asteroid belt. Do they just have some computer like take a picture of the sky and then they like measure each one?
My guess is that
That just seems.
they use basic dimensions and whatever composition understanding we have of it, and they just create an estimate.
I may have
I
just
don't know.
answered my own question. It's got to be an estimate, but it's probably one of those like take a picture of the sky, measure everything in that picture, have some sort of shorthand way to semi do it, like get some rough approximations, and then next week do it again
Yeah,
and kind of keep doing that and do some sort of rolling basis. And if you can find a way to pinpoint this is the same asteroid in this picture as in this picture, you can sort of figure out how many you're actually supposed to measure. And you do that over the course of a year or two, you could probably at least get pretty close to,
probably much longer, but yeah,
not double counting any one particular thing.
right.
And it's a cosmic scale, so you could be off by 100,000 megatons and still be, a plus or minus error rate of like 20% of whatever your number is or something.
Yeah.
So,
So
yeah,
that was the one part that I kind of left out and forgot to get into. I meant to, but I got distracted by Phobos and Stamos. But I
that,
mean, really, what you've got is this really interesting theory that sort of synthesizes all of these anomalies that we don't have an answer for, and it poses this really interesting and probable, not probable, plausible solution. It answers sort of the asteroid belt's origins, and it takes into consideration sort of the chaos of the early solar system as it was forming and its evolution. It takes into consideration the geological characteristics of Mars itself, which are more like a moon than a planet. It looks at the impact evidence on it, like the basin I talked about, like the Borealis Basin. It talks about the tidal bulges and accounts for those, the Phobos and Stamos. I'm so glad I managed to not say the wrong name there. Phobos and Stamos, and how they're
proper
really
respect.
right. We're trying to figure out what they are, and a debris origin makes more sense than a moon origin for them. And it answers a lot of the strange oddities and anomalies in the solar system that we don't have an answer for. It's a possible answer for all these really interesting things. The Perseverance mission is going to be a really good one to hopefully give us some more answers on this. Hopefully we can get to the moons on Mars and we can get to the surface of Mars and get some information back. And until we get samples of things and we can really analyze and study things, we're probably never going to figure this out. But if this is true, if this theory holds water, and if it turns out that it's true, right now it's just speculative, it does answer a lot of questions about our solar system that we just don't have answers for right now. And that's my whole pitch on Mars being a moon instead of being a planet.
I'm willing to be convinced, having not really been presented with this before. You know what's ironic? Of all the things that you could have possibly said, the tidal bulges are probably the most convincing.
Yeah.
Because, and maybe some of it's just my own current line of work, but in real estate, people try to do what you call paired analysis, where you try to take two things that are the exact same except for this one feature.
Like comps, basically, but with one
Sort
thing
of.
different?
Yeah, so if you're shopping for a house or you're trying to figure out, here's a good example, you're trying to figure out how much your house is worth, you can try to find a house that's, quote, exactly the same as yours, like in your neighborhood, same size, same number of bedrooms, same number of bathrooms, similar size yard, all of that, but yours has a fireplace and theirs doesn't. Then you look at the sale prices of those two, and theoretically, the value of the fireplace should be the difference in the sale prices, because that's the only difference between the houses.
That makes sense.
So our moon has tidal bulges with its land. Mars has that. No other planets have that. Like that to me is the most convincing piece of evidence, more than anything else, more than asteroid belt stuff, more than Venus, more than any of that junk. So I just thought that was kind of, to me, that's an actual paired analysis.
Interesting.
We have
Yeah,
another instance in the solar system right nearby, same neighborhood.
Yeah.
Where you can say, oh, this is what should happen to moons. And Mars is what? Mars is bigger than the moon, obviously. Like what, 2 times, 3 times? Do you know?
Ooh, I don't know.
I can look it up real quick. Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay. Mars is about twice the size of the moon. So a planet further out would probably be bigger than Earth. Yeah. It tracks, pun intended, that a bigger planet would cause tidal bulges on Mars.
Yeah.
Similar to what our Earth is on the moon. I'm willing to bet, given your theory, that the storm on Jupiter, if, and this is a big if there was a planet that got annihilated, and if some of that annihilated matter made it to Jupiter, then a proverbial crash or a bunch of stuff flying into Jupiter, it's already really far away at this point from like a Mars to Jupiter kind of distance. That could cause a bunch of agitation and create this big storm.
Yeah.
Just from entering the atmosphere, whirling things up, and the planet's cooling itself over time. It's trying to get rid of the storm, right? And
I have to
theoretically,
Google how long the storm has been going on Jupiter now. Hold on. Keep going.
Well, theoretically, again, we're speaking cosmically, we're speaking about agitation. Something that's very big would very slowly start to fix itself, but then it would speed up. Just as like when things go from cool to hot and start warming, you kind of hit that 1 week or two, even when seasons change, where things suddenly go from still cold to suddenly we're warm again and there's no ice. So It could be that the storm is just accelerating now because it's finally gotten to a point where it can start eliminating itself. Maybe the storm was like taking up a quarter of the planet's surface right at the very beginning. You don't know.
It's true. Yeah, I don't know.
So, and
yeah, I hadn't actually connected that to the destruction of Mars. I just think of it as more like the weird anomaly.
Like it's an anomaly. It's only on Jupiter.
Mm-hmm.
It's not on any other planet. And they've tried to tell us about how it's gaseous or whatever, but so are a lot of the other planets.
Yeah.
That's just, those are correlations, not causations. The Venus thing is interesting to me because that could just be Venus was not near the blast at the time. Maybe it was off to the side, not on the other side of the sun or something. And it could have gotten hit with some shock waves. And Venus rotating slowly could just be it kind of being shocked. And it's actually slowly correcting itself back to a normal rotation. But because we're speaking cosmically, if you get blasted off of your regular rotation, it just takes, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 years to like correct yourself because,
Yeah.
think
That's a
about,
lot of mass spinning around an axis. Yep.
well, think about how like a literal ball rolling down a slight slope. It starts off real slow, and by the end of it, it's going real fast. But it might take 30 meters, 50 meters to like really get a good regular clip going.
Yep.
Now stretch that out hundreds of millions of miles. That's going to take tens of thousands of years.
Yeah.
So we could just be watching. We're literally seeing things correcting themselves from this, if this is the case. And we've been watching it. All of our human history, recorded history, has just been watching this little, everything got slapped in the face a little bit ago, and now they're trying to just right themselves.
And our 50,000 year human history is not even a blink of an eye in the
This is
solar system.
like this is like The Shining, where you're expecting something crazy to happen, and then it's like Tuesday and nothing happens again. And then finally you get to the end with the axe in the hallway and the fucking planet explodes and
Yep.
everything just flies through the halls and goes to shit. And then 20 minutes later, we're all done. And the house is just sitting there as it is, and it's going to slowly take its time to get back to normal. That's where we're at right now. We're after the death of The Shining.
Wow, we've made some really interesting connections here. I like your real estate connection to this. I think that's like my favorite example of tying this into something understandable and simple that
Yeah.
we can relate to.
If Mars was a moon, we should be able to look at our moon or other moons and find similarities. There's a similarity.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
All right, cool. Well, that's all I've got on Mars.
Okay. Oh, that's it.
That's it. That's all I got. I'm sure somebody else with a little bit more prep could have done a much better job, or someone who actually knows about it instead of someone who heard an interesting thing and then did like 1 day's worth of research.
Oh,
You
that's
probably
more
could have
than
found an expert, but
that's
yeah,
more than most people do. So I have a question for you, Mr. One Day Expert, which you probably won't know this answer because why would you?
sure.
Does Kepler's math, or anybody else's math, I guess, say that Venus should be maybe just a little bit further from the sun than it is right now?
That's a great
Or at
question.
least like it's still in the range of where it's supposed to be, but it's on the like quote closer half instead of the farther half. Because an explosion that could literally throw off rotation, at
Probably
least could
changes its
potentially,
distance too.
it could shift its distance slightly too.
Hmm.
And I mean, I don't think it doesn't seem like there's anything to lend itself to it being that drastic, but what if Venus was a hotter version of Earth and then it got bumped about 1,000 miles closer to the sun 50,000 years ago, and now it's turned into this hot, like, heat trapped wasteland because it's now 1,000 miles closer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't see
I don't know
anything
how
about that.
I don't know
I
how you
see.
search for that, and I don't know if anyone's even studied that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's hey,
Honestly, unless a theory like this gains momentum and becomes accepted, no one's probably going to look at something like
yeah,
that.
you're probably right. I mean, if anyone's out there doing, astrophysics and you're just really struggling to find that PhD material that you need to study, here you go. Just gave it to you.
Yeah. Congratulations. Here's your
You
dissertation. Go with
you
it.
can add new knowledge to the field and say all we have to assume is that there was a planet that Mars orbited and it exploded, and now here's how it would work out with Venus. Boom, done. Added knowledge to the field. You're welcome. I expect my residuals in the mail.
Yeah, I don't see anything with a quick Google search looking for it.
That's a
Nothing
hard
in the
thing to search
academic.
too, because what do you search? Like, should Venus be farther from the sun? And and the
Well,
internet's gonna be like, no, stupid, because it's where it is.
well, the first thing I did was pull up Kepler's laws and just see if, Kepler's laws, and then I searched them against Venus, and it gave
Oh
me the
yeah.
3 laws that he had and how they explain the elliptical orbit, its distance, and the area that it covers, and it's all mathematical. Nothing says I didn't see anything there. Yeah,
Well, but the
I
math
didn't.
he's doing, he'd probably, if you were talking to him, you'd be like, okay, so where should the second planet be? And he'd be like, oh, somewhere between 5 million and 8.5 million miles,
Right.
and whatever. And then you have to find someone who's able to figure out, oh, it's an average of 5.2 million miles away,
I hate to say it. You know who
kind of
we need
thing.
for this?
Hmm.
We need Rag Reynolds or Terrence Howard. We need one
But
of
they
those
don't,
two mathematical savants to fix this.
but they don't talk to us.
I know. I know.
All right, here's the plan. One of us needs to become a knight of Sealand,
Okay.
and we need to borrow the helicopter, and we just need to go directly to the Ragster or Terrence and just be like, "Hey, bro, I'm on an important mission. I
Yep.
brought a fucking helicopter for this. Pull out your microphone. Let's go."
I wonder if we engage Rag Reynolds if he would be willing to talk about something like this. This could be fun.
It could be. We should actually try.
We should. I would love to have him on. I'm utterly fascinated now. Like it's created a compulsion, and I'm fascinated. I want to know how things worked out with him and Laser. I want to know. I want to
I
know
was gonna
so
say,
much.
then we could message Laser and be like, you know who came on our podcast?
uh, all right, that's all I've got for Mars. Doug, final thoughts. Give me what you got
On what? Just in general?
on the
Just
theory.
whatever
Yeah,
whatever
you
my
were super
brain had to say.
skeptical last week. You were,
I
ooh,
was.
did aliens blow it up? And you jumped right to that one. And
I don't sound that effeminate. It was a.
sometimes
It
I've
was
had
like,
multiple
oh, did
people talk to me
aliens
about how
blow
you
it up?
sound, and maybe you do sometimes. I don't know.
Well, when I get all like in my, I do like one of these voices.
Yeah, there you
Like,
go.
I get all super excited about something. I'm sorry you don't have joy in your life, all you people trying to act super masculine. Okay,
You all need to take a trip to Philadelphia, all of you.
right. Chase waterfalls just for once in your life. I mean, I was skeptical in the sense of like, I'm always skeptical of the theories that solve everything, if that makes sense. Oh, if this is true, that explains so much. My natural reaction is to be like, okay, so you're grasping for straws, proverbially.
Yeah.
You just don't like how things are. You're not willing to look at things as they are. You want to find the quote perfect solution. I'm all for the like the sort of the universal mathematics type of thing where, you know, like, because the universe is what it is, there should be some sort of way to interpret everything from the cosmic down to the microscopic. I'm not sure if let me put it this way. I've always kind of held this belief that we are not capable of that because we're literally our own tiny little itty bitty three-dimensional observance of our little spot on our little solar system in our little galaxy of our little, you know, universe. And now we have people talking about how maybe our entire universe is stuck in a black hole. Like, you start getting into stuff like that, how on earth are we ever going to find some system that explains everything all the way up to that? That being said, I can't ignore stuff like the tidal bulges, the paired analysis thing, like I talked about. If you really want to just take it completely on its face, how many other planets in our solar system have land tidal bulges?
And I don't know. It seems like it's a rarity, but I can't verify.
How many moons in our system have land tidal bulges? Probably more than planets.
Yeah.
So now you're obligated, as Sherlock Holmes would say, no matter how unreasonable, you have to start accepting, you know, that is the most likely scenario if the facts fit the case. So I'm willing to admit this because we're talking cosmic. We're left with a lot of inference no matter what we do, and we're only getting a snapshot of whatever. I mean, there's people are still fighting about whether the universe is expanding or contracting from the Big Bang still. So, if that tells you anything. The Big Bang is a widely accepted theory for how the universe formed, but we still don't even know what part of it we're in yet. So, that's my 2 cents. I would be very willing to tell somebody that Mars is probably a moon from something. And it's interesting what last thought, because I'm sure we're droning on now. It's interesting what jogs certain things in your brain. Another random reference. I was talking with my wife the other day about that movie. I think it's called Limitless with
That,
Bradley Cooper.
yeah.
They made the spin-off series where he takes that drug NZT and it like unlocks your brain.
Yep.
And how like all this knowledge is stuck in your brain and it's hard to actually unlock it. You talking about the asteroid belt this time made me remember I was in 6th grade, I think, and we were really getting into some solar system-y stuff, you know, as like whatever, 10-year-olds or 11-year-olds. And I think I asked my science teacher it was something along the lines of like, do other systems have an asteroid belt? Or, you know, something like I just thought it was neat. And I was just like, oh, are there other asteroid belts? And he just kind of went, I don't know. I don't know of any of those.
Yeah.
And the answer I was given was sort of like, we're not actually aware of any other asteroid belts in other planet systems. This is 30 years ago now, almost. So we know a lot more. But another thing to support this theory is how many we were aware of other planetary systems. how many of those have asteroid belts of any kind?
Right.
Because if your answer is 1%, that's another lending yourself to a cataclysmic
Yeah.
event kind of proposition.
Yeah. All right. So we flirted with the idea of doing like a mini episode and releasing mini episodes once a week in addition to this, where I basically put out a conspiracy theory or a fringe science theory, and Doug gets to be the cynical skeptic. And we've thought about that. If that's something you're interested in, if you would like us to take what we just did and turn it into a sort of a condensed explanation and maybe debate, something much shorter, like I'm thinking 20 to 30
Like
minutes is kind of
15 to 30 minutes kind of thing.
yeah.
For those of you who've been listening to us for a while, remember the Alabama IVF case where I
Oof.
basically played devil's advocate the whole time for why they're justified in ruling the way they did, and I pissed the shit out of Tom.
I was fired up
It,
that episode.
it's like that.
Yeah.
Tom offers a theory, says why it's kind of silly, and I go, "Nuh-uh, man," and I just start firing. I had so much fun on that episode. It's
That
not
was a
my
fun
favorite to
episode.
listen to, but like talking in the middle of it, I was having a great time.
That was a good one. There was a lot of passion in that episode.
What episode was that? That was before Terrence Howard, I think.
That was it?
I
Wasn't
think
it
that
just
was
after?
I think that was BTH before Terrence Howard.
I think it was the one after What is a
Nope.
Woman? I feel like we had
It
two
was
really yeah.
episode 23, Veiny, Vidi, in Vitro.
Okay. Veni Vidi in Vitro. Go take a listen.
Before Terrence Howard.
Yep. Yeah, we don't have AC and BC here. We have before Terrence Howard and after
Oh,
Terrence.
and I feel obligated to say this. I pointed it out to Tom later, just for fun. For those of you who listened to all the updates episode that Tom just did, whatever, 2 episodes ago now, 64, whatever that would be.
Yep.
At one point in the recording, Tom says, "Hey guys, I'm so sorry. I got interrupted by my kid just getting home from school.
Yep.
I'm back and we're going to try to finish this out real quick." The first episode that he started up again after getting interrupted was the Terrence Howard episode.
Yep.
So that episode was literally split into before Terrence Howard and after Terrence Howard.
It's crazy how
Just
that
so
happened.
you're all aware.
There's no such thing as a coincidence. None.
Nope. It's the universe telling us something. Let's do dad jokes and get out. It's been over an hour already. We talked about Mars for over an hour.
I believe it. I like when I read these things and I come across one of these theories that I really like, it makes me want to write short stories or it makes me want to do something with writing. And so I jump into researching them and I go kind of hard. So I can usually, if there's something I mention on here and I've got like more than 2 facts about it, you can assume that it's in that category and I can probably talk about it for 45 minutes without much of a problem.
Another little fun reaction I had to the Mars thing was all those things about how Elon is actually like an alien or something like that, and he's just here doing whatever.
Yep.
He is probably part of whatever alien race that's been in existence for millions of years. And when Mars's planet exploded, they sent an ambassador here to help humanity get through this situation. And he's here and he's assessing the situation. We talked about how much money he'd have to have since Jesus. So he's been around at least that long, probably earning money that long. And he's sitting there going, "Holy shit, Mercury is drying up. Venus has been pushed closer to the sun. They are actually on that trajectory too. They've only got another 75 million years before they get sucked in. We have to get them to Mars and start getting them out of here for the sake of the human species.
Okay.
We have to get to Mars, and we need to start the process now, because even in an advanced society, it's going to take an extra 1 million to 5 million years to really get up and rolling. You have to develop Mars similar to how you developed Earth, so then you can find a way to get through the asteroid belt. Jupiter's storm should be done by then, and you can start making your waypoints back. So in about 50 million years, we will be joining Elon's alien race on their planet. We will be refugees, and we will be very thankful for them helping continue our species.
I hope they look kinder on immigration and refugees than we do.
Yeah, like you think Trump wasn't given the secret Illuminati Elon Musk knowledge, and when he formed the Space Force and people laughed at him? No, this was the beginning. Yeah. This was the beginning of the saving of the human race. Thank you, Elon and Trump.
I love that theory. And I also love because you gave a beautiful segue into my first joke for the day.
That's perfect. We should talk about the Space Force sometime because when that was first formed and people were laughing at it from
Yep.
both sides, I laughed it for like the first 7 seconds and then I went, oh shit, that's fucking brilliant. That was, people won't appreciate it, I think, for a long time, but I think there will be real, actual historical credit
Okay.
to
Yeah.
Trump forming the Space Force as an arm of the military. Because we're laughing now, but ask Tom about AI. Ask Tom what he thinks about AI, how we're reaching milestones now that we're supposed to reach like 20 or 30 years from now.
Yep.
It's perfectly reasonable to think in 10 years we're sending literal people to Mars.
Yeah.
Having a Space Force that had some sort of like standard operating procedures and policies and everything in place, having that build up 5 or 10 years ahead of time, super smart if you actually could see it coming. Just FYI.
Yeah. I'm not
Trump
going to
is
disagree.
probably on the Epstein list, but he got this one right,
Yep.
guys.
I think you might have got that one right. I'm not going to disagree. I am going to tell a joke about aliens and Jesus, though.
Aren't they the same?
Well, yes, they could be. They could be the same. If you're
I
going to go
mean,
down,
Jesus was on the Imagination Land Roundtable in South Park. You can't hurt me.
I'm not going to make the Anunnaki reference. I'm not going to go there. But I will tell you that when aliens finally came to the planet and made themselves known to the Pope in the Vatican, they had conversations with the Pope.
Of course.
And
I mean, I don't know who else you'd talk to.
well, right. Well, I mean, at the time, they controlled most of the planet, so it made sense. You talk to who has power, and at the time, it was the Vatican and the Pope who had the power.
Right.
So they were talking, and finally, the Pope just decided to ask the aliens, do you know Jesus? And the aliens said, "Oh, Jesus! Of course we know Jesus. He's a great guy. He comes to visit our planet twice a year." Pope said, "Wait, twice every year? Every year he comes to visit you?" And they said, "Yeah." He says, "It's been 2 millennia, and we're waiting for him to make his second visit here. I mean, it's been forever. It's been 2,000 years, and he hasn't visited us twice." And the alien says, "Well, maybe he didn't like your chocolate." Pope gives him a look and he goes, "Chocolate? What do you mean he didn't like our chocolate?" And the alien says, "Well, every time he visits our planet, we gather the best chocolate from each manufacturer all across the planet, and we present it to him on a platter before he leaves so that he can have all the chocolate in the world. Why? What did you guys do the first time he visited you?"
Yeah, I love it.
I thought you'd like that one.
Yeah, what did you? He's mad, guys. He doesn't like us.
And you can't blame him.
I mean, I wouldn't.
No?
Nice. Okay. Considering our topic tonight, I hope you get this one.
Oh,
I think you
goodness.
can. When the ocean and the beach play games against each other, who usually wins?
Neither. Didn't they always tied?
Yep, they're always tied.
Okay.
Thank you. Good job.
Got there. I'm happy.
Good. Yes.
They've been trying to find water on Mars, and they've been really struggling to find water there. And I came up with a great solution. I think I could find water on Mars literally within an hour of setting foot on the planet.
Oh, yeah.
All you have to do is give me a golf club and a golf ball.
Huh? It'll take you a whole hour?
Well, I mean, the atmosphere is
It'll
different.
take me like 4 strokes.
I'm probably hitting that thing much further on Mars, and then I have to walk to
The only
wherever I
thing
hit it
saving me is if the water's on the second hole. I feel like I've told this one before, so I have another one backed up behind it, but I
Okay.
really love this one.
Yep.
What's red and bad for your teeth?
What's red and bad for your teeth?
I don't expect you to get this one. There aren't really a lot of clues. It just really hits me really good.
Red and bad. I'm trying to envision something that you actually read that would be bad for your teeth.
No, it's not it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. What's
A
red and
brick.
bad for your teeth? A brick. Yeah. Okay. All right, fine. We want to go
No,
red.
like I like it.
What do Mars and Texas have in common? A lot of red dirt and no signs of intelligent life.
Okay, I was thinking it's got to be some sort of red thing. What do you call a shoe made out of a banana in honor of your banana
A slipper?
truck? Yep. Good job.
All right.
Man,
I feel much better tonight. This is nice.
I am in the presence of dad joke titans, everybody.
So Mars and NASA had a conversation. And Mars said, "Hey, NASA, come on over. Come visit. I want you to come by." And NASA said, are you kidding me? You're like 34 million miles away. We're not going that. We're not coming that far. We can't be there. And Mars said, I'll tell you a secret. It'll make you want to come over. And NASA said, no, you're 34 million miles away. We can't make that trip. And Mars said, all right, I'm wet. And NASA said, we're coming. That's my last one for tonight.
Stupid. All right. I have one more. It might get us canceled.
Oh, I like that.
But I can't help myself.
Go for it.
Why did the Mexican
Stop. Never mind. Changing my mind.
take anti-anxiety medication?
Oh. All right. I should just say I don't know why, but I feel like I got a couple tonight, so I don't want to let the streak go.
Mm-hmm.
Why did the Mexican take anti-anxiety medication?
Correct.
Antidepressant. Anti-anxiety.
Sure. It's anti-anxiety, really. More than depression.
Tequila mental health problem? No, it's
not bad.
It's not good.
It's not a bad guess.
Oh my goodness. All right, I give. Why did the Mexican take anti-anxiety medication?
For his panic attacks.
That's cute. I do like that. That won't get us canceled. That's reasonable.
I know.
That's not any worse than
I heard it, and it filled my soul with joy, and I needed to share it with the world.
That one is no worse than my "What do China and Viagra have in common" joke. So I think we're safe.
What? Because they're fixing erections?
Yes.
Well, that one's obvious.
I feel like that one's much more culturally insulting than the one you just told.
What? Because Chinese have small penises?
Well, no, because they can't.
I know the joke, Tom. Damn it! I'm trying to be more canceled. Are you going to help or not?
You're either canceled or you're not. You can't be more canceled.
Yes,
all right, fine. Let's talk about the solution to ending all rape. Then that'll really get us.
That motherfucker is not real, lady on the plane. That was serious. Yeah. That was serious business.
Yes.
There are degrees to this.
Oh, this is true. All right. Sorry that we don't have a Bonnie Blue update for John. We appreciate you guys listening to one that was a little new and different.
There's a picture of her and Andrew Tate hanging out, and even their fans are like, what the fuck is going on here?
Apparently. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Here,
carry on.
Here's one article. Andrew Tate and Bonnie Blues. Excuse me, I had to burp there, and I don't think y'all wanted to hear that.
He wasn't burping. He was throwing up in his mouth a little bit.
Wait, you don't do that? Andrew Tate and Bonnie Blues link up, in scare quotes, has fans confused. That's just the headline. So there you go.
All right. So there you go.
I didn't even know there's just a picture of the two of them in the same room. And I think
that doesn't surprise me at all. I don't know why the world is shocked that's happening.
I don't know why it took this. Like, I saw it and I was like, oh. And then my next thought was, wow, that kind of took a while, actually. It feels like this should have happened sooner.
Yep. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate you. We're glad we got that Bonnie Blue update in there. Mr. Reynolds, sir, if you'd be interested in joining us, we would love to have you, especially if we can solve the math of the universe. That would be great.
You know, no joke, we have some fun at his expense, but I think he would be an extremely fascinating person to talk to.
I think he'd be great.
I would definitely be all for that. And I would definitely brag to people. I'd be like, no, look this guy up.
Yep.
This was one of my touches with greatness.
All right, we'll work on that. We'll see if we can make it happen. We will have a guest next week is the plan. We're going to roll someone in so we can bring you guys something a little bit beneficial to dadding. We're not sure which one it will be yet, but instead of just listening to us, we're going to bring you someone who can actually make you a better dad.
We're going to give you guys something of value.
Yes. I just talked for an hour about Mars being not a planet. I feel like a lot of people aren't going to take value in that or find value in that. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks to our patrons. We appreciate you guys. Yeah, thanks for listening. Go, Dad, go.
Go, Dad, go. Masculine voice.
Don't fly United.
Don't fly United.